Hey everyone, and welcome. So you're looking at Windows Server 2025, right? Awesome. But hold on a second. Before you jump in, there's a huge question we've got to answer. Is your server hardware actually up to the task? Because, the goalposts have moved, and what was fine before might not even get you started now. So let's dive in and break down exactly what you need.
And really, this is the whole ballgame. We're not just talking about clicking next on an installer. No, this is about making sure that the very foundation you're building on is rock solid. So before you even think about buying licenses, let's make sure your hardware plan is actually in sync with where Microsoft is heading.
Okay, so here they are, at a glance, the 4 pillars of Server 2025. You've got your processor, your RAM, your storage, and this new big one, security. Think of these as the bouncers at the club. If you don't meet these exact requirements, you're not even getting in the door, and the installer will just stop. But, and this is a big but, as we're going to see, just getting past the velvet rope is a world away from actually being able to dance,
So here's our game plan. We're going to break down each of these pillars one by one. We'll start with what's really going on inside the processor. Then we'll get real about memory and storage. What's the minimum versus what you actually need? After that, we'll tackle that modern security stuff. And to wrap it up, we'll hit on the big one, virtualization, because that's where most of us are living, right?
All right, let's kick things off with the processor. You see that 1.4 gigahertz number? And it's easy to think, oh, cool, my 10-year-old server can handle that. But nope, that's not the whole story. Not even close. It's way less about the raw speed and way more about the special features that are baked right into the silicon. See, it's all about what the CPU can do. It's got to have these modern security tricks up its sleeve. Things like NX and DEP. Fancy acronyms, but what they do is stop malware from running in places it shouldn't, which is a huge deal. And then there's SLAT, another key one, which is basically a turbo boost for virtualization. Without these specific features, it's a no-go. They are absolutely non-negotiable. Okay, on to memory and storage. And folks, this is where the official documentation and the real world, well, they kind of have a falling out. There's a huge difference between what Microsoft says you can get away with and what you'll actually need to get any work done.
So check this out. The amount of RAM you need totally depends on which version you install. If you're a command line wizard and you go with Server Core, you can technically scrape by with just half a gig of RAM. Wild, right? But the second you want a normal desktop with icons and a mouse, what they call the desktop experience, that number jumps up to 2 gigs. That's a 4x jump, just for the pretty interface.
And hey, don't just take it from me. This is Microsoft, in their own words, basically telling you, yeah, you can install it with that little RAM, but good luck actually running anything. For any real job, any actual production server, you're going to want to pack in way more memory.
And it's the exact same story with your storage. 32 gigs. That's the magic number. That's the price of admission to get the OS installed. But think of it like buying a ticket to a concert that only lets you stand in the lobby. It gets you inside the building, but you're not going to see the show.
Because in the real world, you should be thinking 64 gigs minimum. And honestly, that's still cutting it close. Just the desktop experience eats up a chunk of that. Then you add some roles, a few features, Windows updates start rolling in, and poof, that 32 gigs is gone. And of course, you'll want to be on an SSD. I mean, that's just table stakes for any server these days, right?
Okay, let's shift gears and talk about the really big change here, security. This is, well, it's not a suggestion anymore. It's not a best practice. With Windows Server 2025, having a specific hardware security setup is a hard and fast rule. It's mandatory, period.
So how do you know if you're covered? It really boils down to this simple 3-point checklist. First, you gotta have modern UEFI firmware. The old BIOS just won't cut it. Second, you have to have secure boot enabled in that UEFI. That's what makes sure nothing sketchy loads up when the server starts. And third, the big one, you need to have a little chip called a Trusted Platform Module, a TPM, and it has to be version 2.0. So what the heck is a TPM 2.0 chip? The simplest way to think about it is like a tiny, high-security vault that's physically soldered onto your motherboard. Its only job is to protect super-sensitive stuff, like encryption keys. It's the physical anchor for all of your server's security, proving that your hardware is your hardware and that nobody's messed with it.
All right, let's get to our last section. And this is a big one because it's how pretty much everyone is running servers now, inside a virtual machine. The rules get a little bit different here because now we have to think about the host machine, the physical box that's running all your VMs.
So if you're going the VM route, the checklist kind of moves over to the host server. First off, obviously, it needs enough RAM for itself and for all the VMs you want to spin up. You also have to make sure you've gone into the host's BIOS or UEFI and turned on the virtualization extensions. And remember that SLAT feature we talked about for the processor? Well, for the host machine, it's absolutely mandatory. Hyper-V won't even install without it.
Oh, and one last thing, networking. The official recommendation is an Ethernet port that can handle at least 1 gigabit per second. And let's be real, in this day and age, that's the absolute bare minimum you'd want anyway. Anything less, and you're just creating a bottleneck for yourself.
Okay, let's wrap this all up. This right here is the whole story in one place. For your RAM and storage, remember that the official minimum is just the floor. The reality, what you actually need is much higher. But for security, there is no minimum versus reality. UEFI, Secure Boot, and TPM 2.0, that's the new floor. It's mandatory. End of story. There's just no room for compromise there.
And that really leaves us with the big question you need to be asking yourself. These new requirements, they aren't just for today. They're setting a whole new baseline for performance and, more importantly, for security. So as you're planning your next hardware refresh, don't just ask, can my server run this? Ask yourself, how long will this hardware keep me secure and performing well into the future?